At the time of this experience, I was in a very depressed period of my life. Following a work-related injury, I had already undergone one back surgery and was scheduled for a second. Simultaneously, my previous wife had an opportunity to move forward with her life and moved several hundred miles away with the children. I was used to having the kids every weekend, but now had to be without them. Under doctor's orders, I was not supposed to be making any long-distance driving. It seemed that all of the things that I enjoyed the most had now been taken from me. I struggled for some time to keep from simply screaming or tearing things up just to see if it would help. I had even considered suicide or just disappearing from everyone that knew me. Maybe move far away where I would find only strangers. More than once I stood at the Canadian border tempted to cross into the wilderness and see how long I could survive. I had plenty of outdoor survival skills. Each time I had these thoughts, I also thought of what it might do to my kids, and I was brought back to my senses. Each day was long and empty, and the nights were even worse. I struggled to sleep much at all. Most of the time, I would doze for about 30 to 45 minutes only to start thinking of my children. I apparently had very little control of anything in my life and was afraid to go to sleep, not knowing what else I would wake up to. Hours felt like days, and I didn't know when it would end. I often used the television just for company, as I did on this particular night, because it would hide some of my own problems and interrupt most of recurring thoughts. When I turned on the TV for some reason, I noted the time, then sat in my usual position on the couch. Within minutes, I began to dream. I dreamed that I was waking up in a hotel room above the bus depot in Kalispell, Montana. Everything that I saw or heard was like experiencing it for the first time. I saw the details of everything and felt the hard work that went into creating it. I heard normal sounds that were like a symphony of balanced music. Most of all, I understood the reason for me being there was to enjoy a reunion with my family. We had all waited too many years for this to happen and agreed to meet in for breakfast before heading into Glacier National Park for the day. Following a wonderful mini reunion and slowly eating breakfast, we all went outside to the cars to begin our journey. To our father's surprise, we had rented a limo for the day and he wouldn't have to drive. There was so much excitement and laughter inside that car that we barely noticed the drive at all. Some of the obvious landmarks were noted as we went by, and soon we saw the sign that we were entering Glacier Park. Now the miles took longer to go by, and I am sure that it was because of our anticipation was simply boiling over. Higher and higher we climbed into the mountains, trying to notice everything and to make sure that the rest of the family saw it too. Up and over the top we went and finally arrived at the visitor center parking lot. To our dismay, we had not come across a landmark that we were all hoping to see, so we asked our driver where this attraction might be. It was down the other side just a few miles, and he agreed to take us there. We all jumped back into the limo. Slowly we left the parking lot and headed east again. At some point in the short drive down the mountain, I began to notice that I wasn't talking anymore or laughing with the family. I could still hear them, but I couldn't respond. In fact, I couldn't do anything other than see them and hear them. A few more minutes went by and the driver pulled into the roadside parking area. We made it to the right place. The family began to leave the vehicle and Mom urged me to come along. I could not react. When the car door beside me was left open, I started to fall from my seat and onto the pavement. Family members tried to stop my fall and to assess what was happening. As the chaos unraveled around me, I began to realize that I was lifting away from my body. I lifted very slowly at first, and then it began to speed back up to a normal time. I lifted further and further away, watching my family trying to wake me. I lifted further and higher until I could only see clouds below me. Then everything went absolutely black and I could hear nothing. I don't know how long I waited in this darkness before I started to move my arms around and began to question where I was. Was I between heaven and hell, or was this going to be my hell for all time? It seemed like a very long period of time passed, experiencing no light and no sound. Then in a flash, I was caught up in the rapids of a raging river. I fought to keep my head above water and to try and find a way to shore. This was the beginning of what turned out to be a nearly 3-day journey for me to find out what was happening. I didn't know where, but I knew that I had a destination that I had to get to. Most of the time I didn't know if I should go to the left or to the right, but I knew that I had to follow whatever it was that pulled me. During my trek, I was challenged in a number of ways and had to succeed with my efforts. There was never anybody else there to help or guide me. Near the end of my journey, I had to finish climbing over a rocky ledge and to stand in a field of luscious green grass. All of the injuries and scars on my body began to disappear, and this is when I realized that I had made it to heaven. I was still being pulled to go further, so I continued over a gradual climb until I came upon a place with the most beautiful white light coming from it. It was not a door or a gate. I can only describe it as the beginning. As I started to go through, a voice from behind me said,
"I have a request of you."
I turned to see where the voice had come from. I had to ask, "Is this God?"
"I am,"
came an answer.
"and I have a request of you."
First, I was told that I could stay if I wanted to. Then I was told that I could return to my body if I chose to complete the request. To help me with my decision, I was allowed no more than 3 steps into the light. With the 4th step, my decision will have been made. I took my 3 steps. It was glorious, absolutely wonderful. I wanted to stay, but I wanted to hear the request too. I turned and walked away from the light. "What is this request that you have for me?"
"I am pleased that you have chosen to learn more,"
came the voice. I slowly looked up, and before me stood the form of Jesus Christ just 10 feet away. I dropped to one knee, clasped my hands together, and closed my eyes. I began to pray. When I finished my prayer and Jesus said,
"Rise and brush the dust from your feet in the grasses where you stand. Then come forward and step upon the rock that supports me."
Once upon the rock, he told me that he would show me the things that he would request of me. I agreed. The rocks that we stood on began to curl up around us, and I realized that these were not merely rocks. They were the hands of God. The hands lifted up and brought us back along the journey that I had taken. Finally, we were at a place where I could see thousands of people below us. Each of them had their own challenges and abilities just like I had to work through. Neither of them could see any of the others and believed that they were alone as I had been. "What is it that you would have me do?" I asked.
"You will help my sheep,"
I heard him say. "How can I possibly help all of these people?" I cried out.
"Become as they are."
I accepted the request. Having completed my journey, I was brought back to my family and into my body once again. The dream ends with me telling my family that I loved them, and then riding away in the back of an ambulance. I quickly opened my eyes and jumped up from the couch in astonishment because it had only been a dream. I looked at the clock and realized that this 3-day journey had taken less than 17 minutes to happen. My entire spirit was so filled with wonderment, I didn't need to sleep for 3 more days. This dream, or vision, or just call it an experience, changed the way that I think about our existence here on this earth. It changed how I feel about time and what happens when we leave our bodies. My son passed away just a few months ago following a long period fighting pulmonary fibrosis. Before he died, I was able to share my vision of heaven and what to expect when he got there. I believe that it did give some real comfort, and he didn't seem quite so afraid. This story was shared by Daniel B. and happened in 1983.